In my last video, I ranted a little bit about what kind of bookstores were recommending to people for Father's Day. I thought they were all quite stereotypical and for one group of men, namely the ordinary man over 70, I think, in their eyes at least. So in this video, I'm putting my head on the chopping blocks and I'm going to recommend books for men, which is a silly and strange kind of video because we're all different, but still, I'll try to explain. So here are my book recommendations for men. My first recommendation will be in familiar territory if we're going to follow the book recommendations from the booksellers. Namely, we're going to visit the Second World War, and with this, Svetlana Alexievich, War's Unwomanly Face. So for those men out there that are used to reading about the Second World War, this might be a little bit different perspective. I know that she has a rifle on the cover here, but it's more the perspective of the women both fighting and not fighting on the East Front. It's a horrible, gruesome, terrifying book because it's interviews with the women that fought, and it's sometimes the same but also different kind of gruesome. Well, it's horrible. Now that we have the Second World War out of the picture, let's talk about something a little bit more entertaining. And let's do so with The Rivers of London by Ben Aronovitch. So this is my go-to have a good time series by the said author. It's often described as Harry Potter for grown-ups. We meet a police officer that hunts ghosts and rivers and everything that's not real in London and beyond, I guess. And it's just really, really entertaining. It's lightweight. You get through the pages quite quickly. If you have a dad or a man in your life that doesn't like to read, it's really easy to get into and feels like somewhat cartoonish, but more grown up. One aspect I do enjoy about that series is the boyishness of the main character. He is a grown-up, but sort of not, and he gets dominated and fooled by a lot of women, and I do find that topic to be quite fun at times. And also, the whole thing is quite witty. He writes in a funny way, and I love it. So, I would recommend that to a person that wants to get into escapism. And if I had one critique of the other books recommended in my last video, it is that they're all so serious. So I would recommend this series, but it is kind of boyish. If one would like to read a more manly fantasy series, or like with a more manly main character, I would suggest The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. I've only read the first book. I am intending on reading the next book soon, and it hasn't come further, so it's still lacking a book number 3, but this main character is more stereotypically manly. There's a lot more swords involved, and he's a badass. So if you want a high fantasy novel with a more manly main character, this should be your pick maybe, or at least I thought this was a very entertaining novel. The other ones are also urban fantasy, so more like in London, whereas this is like more medievally. So, but I do enjoy both of them. If you have a person in your life, or if you are the person in your life that likes to run, this should be your pick. So this is a book about the author himself and his running journey, I guess. It's what I talk about when I talk about running. And he just describes how he lives his life, being a fantastic person and having the greatest time alive. Listening to music, making food, writing and running. So this is a very short novel, but if you have a person that likes to talk about running, I would suggest that this could be the pick you go for. There are other books about running as well, but this one is the one I've read, and it's fantastic. Now let's get a little bit more serious, and we'll do so with a fantastic novel by Helga Flatland, which I never remember the English name of, but I'll try to link it down below. It's a story about friends that are killed in Afghanistan, and the story is really how all the people that are left are affected by this. And the reason why I thought this would be a good book to mention in this video is that it's about those young men that disappear from our lives, and how important they were to many people. Felt like it was really real, if you get what I mean. Sort of, if you've lost someone, you know how you reacted, but it's also easy to, in this novel, to empathize with all the people. And it's really sad, but it is something beautiful about how the reactions are after someone has been killed. And maybe especially when young men are killed in battle, it's just something extraordinary in a way. The next book sort of continues the theme of war, and it's Hotel Silence by Auður Ólafsdóttir. So this is a story about a man from Iceland that wants to commit suicide. He goes to this war-torn country, decides that if I die, and that will be it, and no one will be hurt. But he ends up being really useful here, and sort of his days just are occupied with doing handyman stuff. And I adored this novel. I don't know if this will be a sort of a not so classical book recommendation for a man, but it is like, it shows how useful men can be. Also how useful anyone could be in that sense, but how the stereotypical man could be useful, and also how much love there is in both doing stuff and having something to do and having people around you. But it's a really, really cool book. It's a different book, and yeah, should probably read that again because I loved it. The next book I'm going to talk about is sort of a very stereotypical book for men. And I thought to myself before making this video that if there's one book that I would recommend to people that doesn't really read books, this might be the man book of them all. And it's I Am Pilgrim by Terry Hayes. I do sometimes forget authors' names. But anyway, this is a spy novel, a thriller. It's a huge book, but it's page-turny throughout the whole thing. It's your classical spy novel in the sense that there's just one guy that can figure it all out. You just get sucked in, and it's extremely entertaining and thrilling and exciting. And I did just love this book, but I also felt like this is almost too much. But for those that want this excitement, I feel like this is the perfect pick. Even though it's gigantic, I would rather start with this than something shorter but less exciting, if you know what I mean. I do know some men that only read crime fiction, and they only read crime fiction whilst on holiday, and I would say that this book might be the perfect book for them. And probably a lot of men have already read that novel, but I'm still going to recommend it. Then for another sort of stereotypical book, it's The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas. So this is one of the first books I read where I felt like I'm reading a proper book, but I'm still enjoying the crap out of it. It's a revenge story written in the 1800s? 1844. But it's a fantastic story. It's also a gigantic book. This is the abridged version about like a person wrongfully imprisoned and then spending the rest of his days trying to mess with the people that made him go there. It goes in with the same entertaining, exciting, plot-driven. You really, really want to know what's going to happen. So if you have a man in your life that tells himself, or if you're that man, which I was a little while ago, the man that says to yourself, I need to read classics. This is maybe the classic I would go to first if you like the excitement, because it doesn't feel like a classic novel. It feels new, fresh and exciting. And it's really like a fantasy novel without being fantasy, I think I would describe it as. Then I thought I'd recommend Bill Bryson, not this book, but the other book I don't have. I read it on my Kindle. It's A Walk in the Woods, where he's going to try and walk the Appalachian Trails in the US together with a friend. And the friend is sort of the useless friend that we all have and we all love. The book is hilarious. You get some information from the book as well, some anecdotes from the area. It's useful in that sense, and you get to learn stuff, which I know is important to a lot of older men when reading books, that you have to learn stuff. To me, it's just fun reading about the guy that packs his backpack with useless stuff and doesn't really know what he has gotten himself into, which is hilarious. Going through these books now, it feels very, very stupid, if you know what I mean. It's like talking about books as something that belongs to this or that group. And the next book is Stoner by John Williams, and it sort of emphasizes the point I'm trying to make, because the point of this video is really to show that everyone's different, and some might like this and that book. But in this book, it's about a man that he's expected to do a lot of stuff at home. He decides to do something else, and this bugs him for the rest of his life. And it shows you a perspective of how it is to be a man. So for the men reading this book, it might just be a book about, well, I identify with how this man is feeling, and it's sad because I know what he's going through. At the same time, that it's really useful for someone else to read it if they can't relate to it. I think that is what makes this beautiful. So if you've come this far in this video, you get what I mean either way, or else you're really stubborn, I guess. But Stoner is a fantastic novel about like the hardship of growing up with expectations, and also difficulties with injustice when it comes to your own children. Something like that. It's a hard book to read at times, I found, but it's still beautiful. The next book is beautiful, but in a different way, and it's Things My Son Needs to Know About the World by Fredrik Backman. This was one of the books that showed up when I tried to Google books for men like 5 years ago, and Fredrik Backman I've read quite a few books from since I read this, but this is about his own feelings from becoming a father for the first time. And I cried a bunch of times. It's a stupid book. It's like, you should pick one football team and blah, blah, blah. It doesn't have any meaning to it in a sense. But as Fredrik Backman does so brilliantly, he gets under your skin and he just hits you. He does something under your skin, and I like it. Which sounds disturbing. But anyway, I do want people to read this book, because it's a cozy book, and especially if it's Father's Day, this is a good book for a father that has just become a father. The last book I thought I'd speak about is a book for those that have lost themselves in manliness, and it's The Brothers Lionheart by Astrid Lindgren. This is a children's novel. These days I read a bunch of children's novels to my kids, and I enjoy every minute of it. So if you had kids and read children's novels to them, maybe you can read for your grandchildren and they will be happy as well. But you could also read children's novels for yourself, because as with this one, it has swords, it has the love of two brothers, which is the most beautiful thing about this novel. Also it has like dragons and stuff all around the place, which makes it entertaining. But it's also like, if you don't read a lot of books, reading children's novels is perfect to get into reading books again. Anyway, everyone should read a Astrid Lindgren novel in their lives, so there's that. She wrote beautiful children's novels. I think in my last video I asked for book recommendations for fathers, but if you do have book recommendations in general for all people around the world, please comment them below, and thank you for watching this video. Bye.